Hello everyone, and welcome back to a new video. And today I am fully stealing an idea that Hannah gave me, and I'm fully saying that because Hannah is sitting on the sofa opposite me. But I have a lot of Fairyloot books that I haven't read yet, and I thought I would find a way of trying to read them. And Hannah suggested, well, why don't you read a chapter to try a chapter and see which ones grip you? And then I thought, take it even further. I didn't think any of this. I don't know why I'm saying this. Hannah thought all this, and she suggested, because she also gets Illumicrate, that we have a load of Illumicrate books. And I really like Rose videos where she does the book box battle. So I thought, why not? Let's do pseudo one of them with seeing how Fairyloot and Illumicrate, which ones are more interesting to me. So that's what we're going to do. So to pick the reads, I've got them all piled up here. And I mean, like, piled up. And to try and choose what I'm going to read first, because I couldn't pick, Hannah also had a very wonderful idea. Basically, this is Hannah's idea, and you should not give me any credit for it, is to use this beautiful pineapple mug that was in a charity shop for £1. Beautiful. And fill it with bits of paper to choose how I will read. How I will read, what I will read. So, oh, my hand's a bit big. A bit. Oh god. Okay, slippery bastards. Oh, it's a Fairyloot book, and it's gonna be City of Dusk. I don't know why I'm showing you. You'll never read it. Book number 1 is City of Dusk. Oh, book number 1.
I absolutely could have helped you, but I chose not to.
I think that was the best way, really.
I need you to know that I chose it because I was too busy looking.
Come on. As you can tell, Hannah and I have lost our minds. Oh, there we are.
There's a ring light there. I look really tiny from over here. Oh, let's do the wave. Classic Hannah wave. Is it even a Lizzie vlog without me doing one of these?
No.
I don't think so.
And I've read all of half a chapter. I think this is just going to be a vlog now.
I'll try not to make any noise.
So I've just read the first chapter. It was like the prologue and the first chapter, because the prologue was like a page long, and I thought that was interesting, so I just read the first chapter as well. And I am really intrigued as to what is going on in this city, and we've got all these different factions, and there's this king that apparently no one likes, and I like the main character. I think her name is Thessia, but I could be pronouncing that incorrectly. And it's following her and her brother through a marketplace, and there's all these refugees who are being treated really terribly by the guard, and Thessia's really angry about it, and her brother's like, no, we can't bring any, like, problems to the house, or whatever. So there's all these, like, internal politics, and there's thieves, and there's gangs, and yeah, I think this one's really, really good, so this one will definitely be in the pile to pick up soon. Okay, so back to the Pineapple Jar of Doom. Am I going to try and get an Illumicrate one next? And this is the Unbroken, which is the second one from the bottom of this giant fucking stack. Joy. And fun fact, this is the only Illumicrate book that I own since I cancelled my subscription with them last year. So, on to this one. High fantasy. I think based off Egyptian mythology, but I could be wrong. But I think this one looks awesome. So, finger guns. What is it with you? Seriously. Right, so that is book number 2. And yeah, I enjoyed the start of this one. It's not as long a chapter as City of Dusk, so not as much happens, so we're not with the characters for as long, but I'm intrigued as to who the main character is, why she's important. Like, the attack on the princess's life was pretty exciting. So yeah, I think this one will be put on my TBR officially. Officially. But maybe not as soon as City of Dusk. But that's just my gut feeling. We'll see what Core Pile says later, because I might be wrong. But, like, realistically, I think I'm going to get to Sea of Dusk before then. The next pick is going to be not an Illumicrate one, but the Fairyloot one. Blood Scion, finally one that is like at the top of the pile. Thank goodness. So I literally know nothing about this one, other than I think it's African mythology, but I also know that this might be the prettiest edition, like, naked hardback Fairyloot has done, because, like, or at least it's one of my favourites. So we'll see if I enjoy the story within. I haven't put the dust jacket on because it's exactly the same. But first chapter of Blood Scion is brutal. Trigger warnings for violence against children, death, full on, you know, dead bodies I mentioned. So yeah, this isn't for the faint of heart. And whew, I don't know how to talk about this, genuinely. I think the main character is the way of describing her powers and how she is a descendant of a death god, essentially. And I think the fact that she's trying to hide that is like a super interesting way of bringing that element into the story. And I want to know who these powers that be are and why she's hiding her powers. And she's searching for her mother, and she finds her scarf in a grave, but like nothing else. So that's also really interesting. And there are like airships in this world as well. So yeah, it is very brutal though. And as an opening chapter, it was pretty decent, but also tread with care. This book does say that at the beginning. It's got some trigger warnings. So I think definitely check those out before you do decide to pick this up, because it's quite heavy-handed from the beginning. It's definitely there. I did enjoy it though, because, you know, apparently I like brutal books. Oh, Little Thieves. This one I've heard good things about. Kind of excited. Just before I begin, I just needed to say this book is like actually beautiful. Like this artwork. I just needed to show you all, because wow. So this is such a pretty cover, which you're not going to be able to see because there's a lamp right there. But I've just finished the first chapter of Little Thieves. Now, I have read Margaret Owen before. She wrote The Merciful Crow, and I really enjoyed that. I haven't read The Faithless Hawk yet, but it is one I'm meaning to get to. So I do enjoy Margaret Owen's writing style, and I'm enjoying this immensely. I like the setup of it, meeting Death and Fortune as actual characters, and how they're kind of threatening, but they clearly did the right thing for the main character. And the main character seems like she's a bit of a scoundrel, which I'm always here for. And I just get the vibe that this is just going to be a really fun story. And the end of the first chapter says, and this is the story of how I got caught. And I'm immediately like, you got too overconfident. You let your confidence take over. So I'm excited to see how she loses, because I feel like she needs to be taken down a few pegs, but I also really enjoy her, like, her whole inner monologue, because she's just so scathing about literally everyone she meets, and, you know, we stan. Clearly it's a new day, I'm in a different outfit, but...
Nothing to do with the daylight behind you.
No, like, I'm sure that the quality of this video will look much better suddenly, because it's not the dead of night. It wasn't the dead of night, I'm just, you know, dramatic.
The night they will find her.
Find her. Anyhoozle, we finished with Little Thieves last night, so it's got to be a Fairyloot book next, and that Fairyloot book will be out of this jar. If I, no, that's an Illumicrate one. There we go. What's the guesses? Oh, Hannah will be happy. Fire by Fire. So I've just read the first chapter of A Fire with Fire by Destiny Soraya, and this is definitely the most different out of these, because these are all kind of high fantasy in some way, and this is definitely hardcore urban fantasy, so I like that it was a bit different. I like the sisterly kind of Fanta and the competition they have between them. I'm enjoying that quite a lot, and I like Danny, and I like Eve, the other sister, Eden. So yeah, I probably wouldn't pick this up like anytime soon, but it was more of like a palate cleanser almost because it's so different. And yes, I'm talking to Hannah because Hannah's over there and she's staring at me and it feels weird to not talk to her. So yeah, I enjoyed it. Time for another Illumicrate book. A River Enchanted. Just read the first chapter of A River Enchanted. It took me about an hour and a half because I was chatting most of the time. This is probably the most boring so far. Like, I literally just don't care. I think Jack is like the beigest of beige. They could have made him not even a slightly less shade of beige if they tried. I just, that's all I've got to say. Like, I don't really care about this island. I don't really care what's going on. I just feel like this is boring. I don't think it's going to get better. So, Fairyloot book now. That was a Fairyloot book. Jadefire Gold. Okay, so I've just finished the first chapter of Jadefire Gold. This one was much more exciting than A River Enchanted. And I am very intrigued about the kind of political system that is in this because it sets up kind of a conqueror, and I'm just very intrigued to see how it got from A to B because according to the main character, the place is now a desert when it used to be a green oasis, so something has changed. Magic is outlawed. Yeah, I want to know more, but I really enjoyed it, so that's fun. Next pick will be a Illumicrate pick. I'm excited for this one, Iron Widow. Okay, so I'm outside, so it's really windy, but something I'm really appreciating is, like, trigger warnings in the front of, like, specifically Illumicrate books, and this is, like, the third one that I've read where there are trigger warnings explicitly. And yeah, it is really sunny, but I decided I'm going to sit on the floor in the garden to read Iron Widow, and I just thought I needed to say about the trigger warnings because I don't see that a lot in books, and I think it's really important that even though I don't look it up, and even though I don't necessarily need the trigger warnings, it's nice when they're there, like to give someone the opportunity to be able to look at those and avoid it if necessary. So I just wanted to say, like, that's a big plus for Illumicrate for having the foresight to put that in their books. Also, Percy is very, very cute behind me. Hi. What a fabulous opening chapter, prologue and chapter. So this follows, well, it's a sci-fi, and there has been like an invasion, and the humans have found a way of taking these alien bodies and making them transform, and they're called chrysalises. I'm really sorry, it's really windy. And basically they're piloted by a male and a female pilot, and the female pilot is a concubine, and it opens in the prologue of one of the most decorated pilots of these chrysalises killing his concubine co-pilot. And then we open onto another chapter of this peasant girl and her rich friend basically plucking her unibrow and talking about, beauty standards and talking about the war, and she is having this guilt of the reason she wants to have her unibrow plucked, and that is to become the concubine pilot. And then we find out that the concubine pilot that was murdered is her sister, and the reason she wants to go and become this concubine pilot to this specific pilot is so that she can murder him in his sleep. So, colour me intrigued. Right. Time to pick the next one. I think Iron Widow might be my favourite so far, which is interesting because I didn't think that would be my favourite so far, even though I really wanted to read that one. It was just great. So now I need another Fairyloot one because that one was an Illumicrate one. Oh, this is the one I'm really excited about. I was kind of hoping I'd get this last, but it doesn't matter. It's Her Majesty's Secret Coven. Okay, so I've just finished the chapter for Her Majesty's Royal Coven. And yeah, it's good. It's urban fantasy, which obviously it's quite amusing, and it opens up with a prologue of a group of teenage girls, well, not teenage girls, they're 9 and 10, who are about to be inducted into the Coven. And it's quite funny because they're arguing about who they're going to marry in Boyzone, which is just hilarious. And then it cuts to the first chapter is one of the girls in particular, Neve, and she is living in Hebden Bridge, and she is a vet. Trigger warning for animal death in the first chapter, but it's really good. I don't really know what I can say. Not a lot truly happened, but it's setting up like an interesting concept, and I did enjoy it. But I don't think it's like the best opening chapter, but it was for another another Illumicrate book then. Which my pot is getting a little empty, but I also have 2 extra books that I haven't put in here, so In a Marvelous Light, which is good because it's right here. I don't have the dust jacket. The dust jacket's in my room because I was going to start this, and then I forgot. So, also, just, isn't that a fun pile? Okay, so I've just read the first chapter of In a Marvelous Light, and this is not what I expected. I thought this was LGBTQ plus romance contemporary, and I think it's magical realism, but this is the shortest by far opening chapter that we've had so far, and it's got magic, it's got violence, it's got intrigue. They're trying, basically this opens up with a man being beaten and in seemingly a public park, and there is an item that this gang is essentially trying to find, and George knows where it is, and that's all we really get. So it's not a lot to go by, to be honest with you, but I am intrigued. I do want to know what this item is. I want to know why they're looking for it and what it is and how the magic works in this world, because it's set in London and that's all we really know. So this is an intriguing one for sure. Okay, so I have 2 bits of paper left, but I have 4 books left. That's because my new Fairyloot came yesterday, and I also forgot that I owned the other Illumicrate book. So, but they're not in this pot, and I'm too lazy to put them in this pot. So, I'm gonna go back to Fairyloot, and there's only one it could be. I don't know why I'm pretending like I don't know. It's The Stardust Thief. Okay, so I've just read the first chapter of The Stardust Thief, and I wanted to like this one. And it's like a massive info dump at the beginning, and that makes it so much less interesting. I don't even know, like, a lot happened, and like also at the same time nothing happened, and we get a sense of like it's obviously based off the 1001 Arabian Nights, and like that is very clear, but I don't know, I feel like the setup for like the main story is so clunky, and I know nothing about these characters other than one's a human, one's a djinn, and like that's it. That's all I got from this. So, oh, and that was, by the way, by them telling us explicitly that she's human and he's a djinn. Like, that wasn't like done in like a creative way. That was just the author writing literally that sentence. So I'm disappointed in this one, really disappointed. Ooh, one last little bit of pepper, but I have 3 books left. But you know, we're gonna go back to Illumicrate, then back to Fairyloot, then back to Illumicrate, and the last bit of paper is surprising, not me, but you, because you don't know what books are in this stack, but it's This Woven Kingdom, which, oh boy, I'm not holding out much hope, but we'll see. It might be brilliant. We will find out together. Okay, so I've just finished the first chapter of This Woven Kingdom. Okay, I did not enjoy the Shatter Me series by Tahara Mafi at all. I read the first one and thought absolutely not. This is very different from that, and I think her writing has definitely got better, but the first chapter didn't fill me with much intrigue. This weirdly is very much like The Stardust Thief in the fact that it's Jinn mythology, but I don't know. I mean, she's a dressmaker, and that's about all I know about this person. And they like fire. That's all I can tell you about this chapter, and that she's in the employ of someone rich. So this definitely isn't one of the top choices, I don't think. So the next pick is going to be the new Fairyloot book, which is This Vicious Grace by Emily Thiede, and I think this is Italian, based on like Italian folklore and stuff. I'm not 100% sure, but very yellow, and I enjoy this cover immensely. And yeah, we'll see if this one is any good. So This Vicious Grace follows Alessa, who has got powers which are supposed to magnify her chosen partner's powers. But, like, she's supposed to know who her partner is, so she keeps on killing them, which is really amusing to me. That she's like, no one can touch me, because I killed them. But it's not quite like that, but it is. I enjoyed this first chapter. The last part of the chapter is Alessa being almost dying, or like she's been, something's hit her and she's bleeding. I assume it's a fatal wound. I don't know, maybe not, but it sounded like it. So yeah, not the most like enjoyable chapter as a whole, but like it sets up the idea pretty well. So the next book on this, or the last book on the stack, is A Deadly Education by Naomi Novik. So A Deadly Education, the first chapter is long and it's info dumpy, but it does set up the atmosphere of like the school and understanding like what the school is and how it was built. And it's interesting that like there's all this backstory of new graduates being like killed every time because there's people trying to eat the magic. So I think that's really fun. And I enjoyed it, but it was long. Okay, so Hannah is my glorious assistant today.
I got stats.
So, Hannah, what's the stats? What's the scores on the doors? From the worst to best. Okay, so
You can tear the pages out if it's easier.
That's fine. So...
Now you look like you're doing a news thing, like, and on today's news.
So, I'm going to go from worst to best because I think that's probably the easiest. I'm not going to get them down because as you can see, they're all precariously now in a pile and I don't dare touch it. So, the worst book, which is not a surprise to me at all, is A River Enchanted. It was just so boring. I just didn't care. I thought, what was the point of you jumping out of the boat? I think that's what fucking did it, is he jumped out of the boat into the sea when he knew there was something in the sea that might eat him. Like, why would you do that? Then it's The Stardust Thief, which is really, really disappointing. I was expecting more from that. And then it was This Woven Kingdom. I don't really like Tahara Mafi's writing style, to be honest with you, so that's not that surprising. Then it's In a Marvellous Light, and yeah, that also doesn't surprise me too much, to be honest. Then it's Fire with Fire. Again, urban fantasy. I'm much more of a high fantasy gal. Like, Fire with Fire it was fine, but it's not something I would typically reach for. Then it's The Unbroken, which is, I wouldn't have expected that.
I'd have expected it to be higher.
Yeah.
I think I'd have expected you to enjoy it more. And you may well enjoy it more when you read the rest of it, but as a first impression, it obviously hasn't made the impression you thought it was going to.
No. That's one that I would have thought would have been higher, so. Then it's Her Royal Majesty's Coven. Her Majesty's Royal Coven.
Yeah, I've written it wrong.
My brain just short-circuited for a sec there. That's surprising. Again, though, it is urban fantasy. I enjoyed it more than Fire with Fire because it's set in a place I used to live really close by and I have family who live in Hebden Bridge. So that obviously helped it more. But again, it's urban fantasy and it is slap bang in the middle. Yeah, slap bang in the middle. So then it's Blood Scion, which it was just a brutal opening chapter. Like, it was a lot. Then it's Jade Fire Gold and This Vicious Grace. They both scored the same, which I enjoyed Jade Fire Gold, and This Vicious Grace I think is just the kind of cliffhanger that was kind of left on at the end of This Vicious Grace. And Jade Fire Gold, I really fucking enjoyed the first chapter. Then it's City of Dusk and Deadly Education. At City of Dusk, I love necromancers. I think they're really interesting. This was done in a really interesting way. Deadly Education, there was so much going on and it was set up the whole story really well to the point like it made me want to keep reading it. Then it's Little Thieves. Again, the setup for that was awesome. I really enjoyed the characterization of death and fortune and the implications of that story. That was super fun. And then what I thought was going to be the top is Iron Widow, which is sci-fi. And it's setting up a revenge plot, and I like nothing more than a good old revenge plot. Disappointingly, my two favourites are both fucking Illumicrate books. And I don't get Illumicrate, I get Fairyloot, but, I mean, I think, yeah, that's annoying. Because Iron Widow, Little Thieves, and Deadly Education are all Fairyloot books, and they're not. They're Illumicrate books, and they're all up there, but then everything else down until The Unbroken are all Fairyloot books. So I think Fairyloot do younger YA and more like urban fantasy, and then you've got Illumicrate is much more catered towards older YA on like bordering on adult, and I don't know, we will see when I actually read these in full. I'm not reading A River Enchanted. I think I'm just gonna have to unhaul that, even though Hannah literally just gave it to me. I don't have any interest in reading it. Like, I'm going to read everything else, I think, just to try it, because Stardust Thief, it might just have been the clunky start, like it might get better. But yeah, let me know if you want me to do any more of these. I have kind of run out of books at the moment because I'm not reading the new Illumicrate release. We do not stand for racist and homophobic shit here. So
yeah, but give it another 6 months and you'll have some more books
yeah.
to read about.
So let me know if you read any of these. Are you surprised by any of the results? And I'll see you in my next video. Bye guys.